climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
Honor, trust, respect, devotion, friendship, loyalty, karma, team, us, rock, solid,
I can't go
evil.
on this way.
Damn. With no union and no benefits, no dental plans, I can't eat off no 100 grand. I got cavities that need filling. You can't feed a peanut chews. Now put your feet up in the shoes. A lack of green and give a blues. A sip of purple make a brew. Make a drunk person speak a sober tune. I can't do it, man. We make these chips off this gift that we curse with, but then my mind drift. Am I defeating the purpose? Cause you feel like when you miss your son first, but who gon' pay the bills? Supply the mills, no surplus. My baby mama give me drama on the daily, like she making it barely, and my kids is eating rarely, man.
KBLA Talk 1580. It is time for another edition of Freedmen Fridays, and I'm glad you could be here. You're invited in every second, but I want to remind you that after our conversation this hour, the Freedmen Friday segment, we go into a reparation conversation with open phone lines. So if you can't get in or you don't want to get in, you want to sit back and hear what's being said and then respond to it, I'm inviting you in. Also, you can bring up other things you've heard throughout the week or things that you're stressed about. Joining me right now, a man who describes himself as a reparationist, born and raised in Philly, one of the originators of Juneteenth being celebrated as a national holiday with his work with Millennial Juneteenth and the Pennsylvania Juneteenth Coalition. He also testified at the California Reparations Task Force, which, of course, you know, is first in the nation. And he's been a community organizer and activist since, over the last 10 years. He's also a former legislative aide to Senator Anthony Hardy Williams, who is the minority whip in the state Senate there in Pennsylvania. Khaleef Alexander, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Good. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, great to have you in. So I guess let's start with the basic. You call yourself a reparationist. Yes. What does that mean to you?
So a reparationist is someone who wants economic justice and empowerment for Black Americans, and our overall focus is to revive the Reconstruction era, so we call it Reconstruction 2.0.
And, break that down, like why revive? I mean, we know that the work of Reconstruction was unfinished, but why not just do another thing?
Well, I always tell people in politics, they go off history a lot of the time. Us as a people, we go off of history too, but sometimes we don't know how to put that history into fruition. And when we look at the Reconstruction era, we can look at just say 5 years before, 10 years before the Reconstruction era started, just say 1860, and then we'll say 1890. Throughout that 30-year period, we probably saw the fastest evolution of a people in world history. In 30 years, we went from a group of people who couldn't read, write, speak properly, just do a bunch of different things. We only were good with doing things with our hands. In that 30-year time frame...
Well, we were only allowed to.
Oh, yeah, we were only allowed to at that time. Yes, you're right. But in that 30-year time frame, once we were able to, learn, and we started building institutions of higher education, we started to run for office. We probably had at that time the most elected officials in some of these southern states that we've had currently until this day. We can even look at the evolution of inventions that we created. So throughout that 30-year time period, we saw an evolution of a group of people who honestly weren't able to do anything, weren't even looked at as people. So I like to look at that era as the job of Reconstruction has not been finished. And since we are celebrating Juneteenth as our independence, as our Freedom Day, we look at it and say, we go back to Reconstruction. June 19th, 1865, that was the day that Emancipation Proclamation was read to those people. And we look at it and we say, hey, look, these same individuals, they were supposed to be granted 40 acres and a mule. They were supposed to be granted all types of land, different things of that nature, and they didn't receive it. So now it's time for us to fight for our economic justice, just like we were doing during that time.
I've had folks on this show argue, well, that was only supposed to apply to a narrow group of enslaved people. You shake your head. Why?
It's been so long to the point now where as though, say for example, if somebody does give you that argument, well, that was only supposed to be people who were enslaved, not people who were free at the time.
Or not even all the people that were enslaved.
Right. But now we've mixed in. We've mixed in with people who families didn't own slaves. But some of those people who families did own who didn't own let me get this right. Some of those people who come from families who weren't enslaved at that time, they still have the slave in their lineage. Or that person might have just bought their freedom and bought the rest of their family's freedom. Or that person could have been free and lived off on a segmented side and had been free, but originally their people could have been enslaved. But we look at from 1865 or the original census 1870, from 1870 to 2024, you got some slave up in your lineage at this point. So therefore, the goal is, and I like to use Dr. William Sandy Darity's method. If you have one descendant on the 1870 census, and you also identify yourself as black within 10 years of reparations coming out. Therefore, we can try to like get a lot of people who will try to jump in there and say, well, I'm black now. No, you're not. So things like that.
You're on the younger end of millennials. What drew you into this fight?
I got to send this to him too, but there's a guy in Philly. His name is Ron Brown. He and I knew him previously prior to 2019, but in 2019 I saw him and we kind of like reconnected. He was like, "Hey, I remember you," and I was like, "I remember you," because he had helped me with something before I went to college. And when he helped me, it was great at the time, and I was able to matriculate through college, different things like that. But one thing about this guy, he helped give me an identity with activism. So, like for example, like when I started doing activism and when I started, working with people, I would do like politics, or I would like have different. I wouldn't have a direct focus. It would just be like, I just want to do something to help black people. Like I care about the community, care about black folks. He said, "Hey, look, this Juneteenth thing is big. You got to check this out. I've been doing this for 26 years." And he told me, he said, "Hey, look, you have to focus on something in order for you to be great with it." And he said, I'm gonna teach you this Juneteenth stuff. I'm gonna teach you the era of Reconstruction. I'm gonna teach you a lot of this stuff, and I think you're gonna do well with it because you can understand information. At the time when he told me this, he said Juneteenth would be a national holiday. I said, I don't know, man. You sure? And he was like, yeah, with the work that I'm doing, that he was saying he was doing, and the work that he was doing with his team, and different people at the time he was working with, because it's such a big movement, so everybody's not as connected, if you would, but everybody knows Opal Lee, Queen Mother Opal Lee, as we call her. But there's a lot of different individuals, and he's one of the individuals from Philly and from the northeastern area who played the instrumental role. So he kind of helped give me the identity for Juneteenth, and then from Juneteenth, he said, okay, as Juneteenth is becoming a national holiday, you have to look towards something. This was in 2020 after we helped make it become a state holiday. So we already knew it was going to become a national holiday. And when he said that, I picked up a book from Dr. Claude Anderson. And then it kind of drew me down this lane of focusing on the economic empowerment for Black Americans. And then from there, that's pretty much how it went.
People, one of the things that we are sort of unpacking here on this Freedmen Friday is people's different outlooks on reparation, how we get there, what camp they're in, what these folks are actually doing to further this goal of reparations, whatever their definition of that is. And I think we're getting some movement just in terms of people understanding where other folks are coming from. Absolutely. Not that we're always going to have consensus. So, do you find, Khaleef Alexander, yourself, that it's important how you refer to yourself? Freedman, Negro, Black, FBA, ADOS. I know I'm missing some.
It's too many at this point. You just... Man, I would say The names, I don't really, I call it name banging. I don't really name bang. Or some people even call it ideology gang banging. I don't do that. I understand what everybody's saying. Everybody's saying just about the same thing. Some people just like names better for whatever reason. But
some make the argument that you have to legally be called a freedman because it's a freedman's Ural, or you have to legally be a Negro because the original documents say Negro.
I'll say this, and not necessarily the freedman or Negro, but this is just a blanket way I'm gonna see it. Some people, or even FB or ADOS, some people have their ideology, and their ideology just isn't right on just changing names and different things like that because there's a descendant group. The government knows who the descendant group is, and if you're writing, a lot of these people, they don't write legislation, they haven't written legislation. They just started reading legislation 2 years ago, and they're in their 50s. No offense to anybody, but this is kind of how I look at it. That's why I always tell people, I used to work for a senator. I understand how politics works. I used to work in different offices growing up. I used to work on different political campaigns. So just the legislative process, how legislation looks, a lot of the stuff people say really isn't true. However, for the sake of this discussion, the name banging thing, we just had to be Black Americans. We're everything under the sun, but one thing I will say that some people may not agree with, some older people that are outside of the movement, we don't like to be called African Americans. So I'm from the delegation of people. All of those people, they don't want to be called African Americans. Not because we're not African in the sense of we're not African. Like we are of African descent. I always like to make that distinction. Like,
meaning you're not saying that the DNA is not there,
Yeah.
but you just want to be a distinct group.
Yeah, like,
so what do you call that distinct group? I mean, I think that's a lot of where all these names come from is grappling to define that distinct group.
Black American, that's the best one. I mean, if you just want to go technically based off of, so we want to go into this new age of ethnicity. So race will still be a construct that the dominant society uses.
Right.
And we understand that. So we understand that race is the construct that the dominant society uses to identify groups of people. Cool. Now, we also understand that in places like Canada and London, they use ethnicity. Actually, in a lot of places in Europe, they use ethnicity or quote-unquote nationality. So what I like to do is I say that ethnicity and nationality are pretty much the same thing.
But they're not. Nationality is what your passport says. Ethnicity is where your people are from.
So when you pledge your oath to a country, you give up the quote unquote terminology of a nationality, and then you fall in line to an ethnicity. So for example, if I am
you turn white?
No. White is the race. You turn into the ethnicity.
Well, you just said it was a construct. I mean,
So
I'm not trying to play words.
No, I understand.
This is a
This
pet
good
peeve of
discussion.
mine. I feel like we have to understand the difference between race, ethnicity, culture, nationality, even
So
religion.
I'm gonna break it down to you like this. So you come into this country, the races are white, African American, or what they'll just say is black, white, black, brown as they'll say, but even though Hispanic and Latino is an ethnicity, which I don't understand, but we'll just go for these terms.
But Latino isn't an ethnicity. It's a generalization. Salvadorian would be an ethnicity, right?
That's what it says when you fill out the
Yeah,
documentation.
okay, so
it
I'm
says
not,
ethnicity.
we don't need to go down the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying.
No, I get what you're
There's
saying.
gray area there because we're lumping people together who are indigenous and European,
Absolutely.
right?
I understand 1,000%. I'm just going by what these people
Right.
have created in these terms.
Right.
And then when you go to another race, it would be Asian. So one of the things is when we look at the race, just now they're creating these ethnicities that go next to the race so that you can further
On the census.
on the census,
They've
but even
been
on college college applications.
Asian is a race, but the ethnicity is Cambodian or Filipino or Chinese.
And-
that is not the synonymous, though.
But that's happening though. That has been happening
Right.
on recent
Absolutely.
documentation.
Yeah.
So with me saying that, so you know how you just said that Chinese or Cambodian is the ethnicity, right?
Right.
That's also their nationality. So what happens
If
is
they live there, what if they
li-
live here, or
if
what
they-
if they live in London?
If they live here, they're an American, but they're still a Chinese American.
So their nationality would be American, their ethnicity would be Chinese, their race would be made up Asian, right?
So that's
and,
you relinquish,
and their culture would be wherever what they be doing,
Yeah, but you relinquish
how they live in.
This is the thing. Black Americans, we don't actually pledge an allegiance to the United States. when we're coming to this country.
Yeah, because we were kidnapped and brought here.
Right.
Unless,
but
yeah.
other individuals, they pledge an allegiance, which means you're relinquishing your right as a let's just say a Cuban national. You're relinquishing that component of your life, even though you're still.
Why?
Because you're pledging an oath to another country.
Yeah, but you still have
That's
your
like if you go from
ancestors.
Muslim to Christian. You're relinquishing.
No, it's not the same because one, you're changing your belief system. The other one, you're saying, nah, my ancestors are no longer my ancestors.
No,
because
they're still your ancestors. That's why they're part of your ethnicity. But you're not a part of that nationality no more because you can't vote in that country anymore. You can't get food stamps in that country anymore. You've relinquished yourself as a national of that country, but your culture is always from there.
Okay, we got people. I think maybe we're confusing people even more, but I think it's good because we have to talk about this. Yeah. We have to understand it.
A lot of people they've said it, but they haven't really broken it down to the core. Whereas though I understand that ethnicity and nationality, quote unquote, to some people they may have not been the same thing. But when
they're not the same thing.
But the way how I'm breaking it down. You relinquish yourself as a national of that country when you
Yeah, you change your nationality, but you don't change your ancestors.
Your ancestors, that's why you're a Chinese American. You're still a Chinese person.
All right, we're talking with Khaleef Alexander. We had some folks here with their own versions of weigh-ins on this. We'll check in with them, and and we're talking about reparations, but this is foundational in a way.
This is foundational,
and so we'll continue the conversation, and we'll get into some more things when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
So, does anyone else's family and home need a little winter pick-me-up? If so, you've got to go to Kohl's right now. I just saved big during their winter event. I got storage bins for just $15.99 that are so needed around the house. Then I got my kids new winter coats for 50% off and my husband some stylish boots for $29.99. Plus, because I earned Kohl's Cash on it all, I can't wait to treat myself next time. Thank you, Kohl's. Select styles. Some exclusions apply. Offers valid through January 28th. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
We're for Washington. We love Febrez's new scent. Refresh and energize.
So much we made a song about it.
I can't escape this feeling inside. Refresh and energize. It's a mood, it's a vibe. Breathing for the first time. So free, so alive. Breathe happy for breathe. Smells like paradise. Breathe happy for breathe. La, 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 la.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We're talking with Khaleef Alexander. He is a reparationist, and he's worked on a lot of different things, including the Juneteenth holiday becoming a national holiday. Started out the discussion. I love the way you tied in Juneteenth to the reparations movement. We got off into this conversation about race, ethnicity, culture, and nationality because we were talking about who is that group, who is that special group that is meant to qualify for reparations. And I'll just read some of these comments real quick. You can respond or not. I know we don't want to go down too far further down this path. George Calloway says we should build our case around the racial wealth gap, period, not names and people. Kwamel says Hispanic and Latino is a political designation, whereas Black, Asian, and white are not. I don't know about that. I mean, Black power is a political statement for sure. Ronnie Lynn says Chinese is not an ethnicity, and all ethnic groups that exist today broke away from another group at some point in history. And Paulie says good conversation. I don't know if you want to respond to any of that, Khaleef Alexander. So how do you, aside from our stimulating discussion, how would you define that group that is owed reparations?
So we'll say the descendant class, the descendant group, or we could even use the term. We can use the term freedman. We can use the term Negro. We can use the term Black American. But really, the descendant group, and yes, that the one person on there is correct when we say the. Now we still use the term racial wealth gap, but we like to get a lot more specific and just say lineage wealth gap. So we'll just say the lineage wealth gap. Dr. Darity breaks it down. Originally, it was 14 trillion. Then I think in his most recent study that he did a few years back, it was 16 trillion. But we'll just say anywhere between 16 to 20 trillion dollars to eliminate the lineage wealth gap between Black Americans and white Americans. And that's just the starting point. Like, that's another thing about reparations. Like, people are like, well, they'll be mad at Dr. Darity saying, well, if he's only saying 16 trillion, that ain't enough. But you never seen $10,000 in one setting. You're saying $16 trillion is not a lot, but you never seen 10,000 in your life. So a starting point is not the actual end all be all. The starting point is just, we're just gonna have a conversation. This is how we're gonna negotiate this, but the negotiation gonna start at this number, and that's gonna be the baseline of just the conversation, because we've never been able to properly define reparations to the general American public. We just say reparations. And then, okay, well, what's the number?
Okay, so when you say properly defined, you're talking about a number.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. You have repeatedly made comments about older folks in the movement, people 50 just starting to read books or whatever. And Professor Darity is not exactly a spring chicken.
Oh, no, he's a genius. He's the wizard. He's one of the wizards.
What is the generation gap in the reparations movement? What is going on with that? Well, let me not give you multiple choice. Let me go to your brain for that one.
Well, what I'll say is, some people might have been in the business sector. Some people might have been in the labor sector. Some people may have been just doing other things, right? And there was like a political awakening amongst this Gen X generation. They like redeveloped
Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, right?
Millennials, I'm gonna focus on Gen X for this.
But you're a millennial.
Yeah, I'm at the last tail end of millennial. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of what I've noticed. They probably were. Some of these people probably were Democrats. Some of these people probably weren't. I'm not 100% sure. But what happens is, even in the millennial fraction of the reparations movement, some people, they may have not been politically involved. So what happens is, when people aren't politically involved and they get turned on to an ideology, some things may be skewed. Some things may be skewed in regards to learning and understanding new information, but also breaking down information. Now, somebody like me, I always say that I'm a different breed, because I was somebody who was taught politics at 15 years old by somebody that was running for office at the time, who's now a current councilman in Philadelphia. So I had a political understanding at a young age, but then I also had a freedom fighting spirit at a young age, because I went to a school that focused on Afrocentric studies and focused on really redeveloping the community, if you will. The high school that I went to in Philadelphia does so much for the community that it serves, outside of just educating the young people. So I grew up with that kind of spirit in regards to understanding the people, but then also understanding legislation and understanding the political process. And I went to college for political science. Some people didn't go to college. Some people went to college for accounting, and now they're doing politics. Nothing is wrong with that. However, it's like, does the guy that paint houses, is this the right guy that's gonna fix my car? So that's kind of where we are with some of these different things. And I like to jump out and say, hey, look, I'm just being honest. There's not too many people that can actually do certain things that I can do. And sometimes I even tell people I may not look the part. I may not look, because some people say, hey, look, you should probably be wearing a suit if you want to talk how you want to talk. No, I don't got to wear a suit. I like to wear, this is a black-owned company. This is Brotherly Soul. This is a good colleague of mine. This is another black-owned hat. So I like to wear a lot of black-owned fashion. I style it up. Whereas people like, that's black-owned? I thought you got that from Urban Outfitters or Zara or something. Nah, this is my homie stuff.
So, what you say, a lot of people can't do what you're doing. So what are you doing? What is the work on the ground that you're doing to move the ball on reparations?
Great question. So currently right now in the state of Pennsylvania.
You're going to have to do it in two parts because we're going to be in news, traffic, and sports in a second.
Okay, I got you. So the first part is in the state of Pennsylvania, we are actively moving legislation to develop a Freedmen Affairs agency for Black Americans or the descendant group. We're working with, I'll just say one of the politicians that we're working with on that, State Representative Rick Krajewski. He's out of the neighborhood that I live in Southwest. And great guy. He has a good understanding of what we're speaking of, and he understands that, Reconstruction is something that is really important, not only for me, but for the people that I'm working with. And then also another individual that we're working with is the gentleman that I used to work for, Senator Anthony Williams. We're working with their office to develop this legislation and really put this out there. We reached out to everyone on the Legislative Black Caucus. We reached out to everybody on City Council to even get this done. And what you'll find is that there's a lot of resistance amongst Black politicians. I'm not going to name any names, but there's just a lot of resistance to do anything specifically for black people. Shout out to Jamie Gaudier, Councilwoman Jamie Gaudier from Philadelphia. She introduced the reparations bill and got it passed last June with some colleagues of mine from Incobra PHL, which is the only independent chapter of Incobra.
Okay, well, more on that when we come forward because that's intriguing. KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Biden administration has given Texas a deadline to allow federal agents back into a riverfront park along the border with Mexico, which is currently surrounded by fencing and razor wire. But it's unclear what will happen if the governor doesn't comply by the end of the day. Governor Greg Abbott has already put out a statement saying the state has the right to self-defense, and he has the backing of 25 other GOP governors. Today marks 4 years since the death of NBA African-American legend Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 other people in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California. The 2 other victims were 2 of Gianna's basketball teammates, their parents, and the helicopter pilot. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers scored a season-high 141 points last night in their win over Chicago. LeBron led the Lakers with 25 points and 12 assists. Before the game, LeBron found out that he will be the first player in NBA history to appear in 20 All-Star games. We're about to find out how good the Clippers really are. The Clippers begin a 7-game Eastern road trip tonight in Toronto. The Clippers are 14 games over 500 and have the 3rd best record in the Western Conference. Congratulations to Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator the past 3 seasons. The Atlanta Falcons hired Morris as their new head coach. There are now 6 black head coaches in the NFL. 2 openings are still on the board, Seattle and Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Got me a damn girl on my team.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe we have the best tag team in morning radio. Dominique DiPrima and Tavis Smiley. As the first black woman in Los Angeles to anchor a morning drive talk radio show, Dominique covers local politics like a blanket. Weekday mornings from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., Dominique passes the baton to Tavis Smiley, who talks to everybody about everything every day until 12 noon. KBLA's dynamic duo, Dominique and Tavis. It's no wonder the LA Civil Rights Department is honoring Dominique DiPrima this year at its Tell Our Story honoring black journalist leaders and storytellers event, Thursday, February 8th. Or that the John M. Langston Bar Association of Los Angeles is honoring Tavis Smiley at its 47th Annual Installation and Scholarship Awards Gala with its Community Impact Award on February 10th. We couldn't be more proud of Dominique and Tavis, who make black history every day, not just in February. If you're missing Dominique and Tavis weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Holla, yeah.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, I'm John McKinney, your candidate for District Attorney. As an African American who has served our community for over 25 years, I'm proud to have successfully convicted the killer of Nipsey Hussle, standing up for justice where it matters most. But my commitment extends beyond the courtroom. I'm deeply invested in youth development. And when it comes to our police, I believe in accountability. It is essential that those who protect us are also responsible to us, reflecting the values and integrity of our community. This election, I ask for your vote. I am John McKinney, and I'm running to be your district attorney. Learn more at McKinneyforLA.com.
Paid for by John McKinney for LA District Attorney 2024.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Khaleef Alexander. He is a reparationist, a community organizer, and an activist. Also a former legislative aide to Senator Anthony Hardy Williams. You did some time, a year of service with the mayor of Cora Vista. You're on the board of Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School. You're busy. You're also a teacher. You do a lot. But we were talking about specific work in the area of reparation, and we said we would do it in 2 parts. So here comes part 2.
Yeah. So, damn, where was I at?
You were talking about first let me bring you back this way. I know you're part of this, or I believe you're part of this march that's taking place in April. Explain what that is and what your involvement is.
Well, I'm on the outside. I'm really just working. I'm on the outside looking in, kind of sort of like, I just know a little bit of a few things that's going on since I have my own things going on. I just know that I'm going to support and participate in it as much as I can.
The Reparations March.
Yeah, the Reparations March that Rashid Littlejohn and a few other people that are working on that. But at the moment, I'm on the outside because I'm doing what I'm doing. I have to reach out to them to, get further information. But I am in support of it, and I will be there to support those brothers.
Okay, so you were talking about legislation and the fact that you were able to pass legislation, but you're still trying to implement it.
Yes.
So what does that look like?
Well, it's a process because let's just take Philadelphia reparations. The city of Philadelphia, they passed reparations in June of 2023. I testified I did testify on the bill June, I believe, 17th at City Hall. And prior to me doing that and prior to the legislation even being passed, that was a process with, I want to say, several individuals from different groups. Because every town, there's not just one person or one group working on reparations. There's a bunch of different people. So what I was able to do in Philly is I found a lot of people who were working on reparations, and we just all linked up. And we reached out to different elected officials on our own time, and we just went to see how that worked.
You also mentioned working with an independent chapter of NCOBRA, and a lot of people that that consider themselves lineage reparationists, as I assume you are, because you keep saying lineage, do not see eye to eye with NCOBRA.
So NCOBRA PHL, they're the only independent chapter from the national NCOBRA organization. So the national NCOBRA organization, they focus on race reparations. It sounds crazy saying it on air, but they focus on race reparations, which that's what they're on. The Philadelphia chapter, led by Rashawn Williams, that's a good friend of mine, and Brianna. I can't remember her last name. Apologies, but Brianna and Rashawn, they lead the NCOBRA PHL chapter, and they're focused on lineage. In fact, in the language, that's what they're focused on. Me and Rashawn, we actually did a panel in 2022. Based off the reparations show that we did on WHYY PBS back in 2022. We did a panel, and me and him were the strongest individuals when it comes down to speaking on lineage-based reparations. So, and that NCOBRA chapter is really special because they're not like the national. They're focused on what they're focused on.
Understood. So it's not that you've found common ground with NCOBRA. You have a chapter that's aligned with you. Why do you think? Why do you think that is? I mean, do you think it? Because, like, in California, for example, you have people that you would call race-based reparations, and people that are on the lineage side, and they manage to find some compromise and come out with a 1,200-page document with recommendations.
I don't know if they found compromise. I think that they just got outvoted and they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice. Like they didn't have a choice.
Well, the reason I say it's a compromise is because, for example, in the California, the way the reparations set up, people that can prove their lineage have advantages. You know, they get consideration, particularly around cash reparations.
Right.
But other people benefit from many of the recommendations, i.e. legislative changes.
I could possibly see that. I just think that, and I don't have, like, I'm not from out here, so I don't have the full grasp of everything in regards to, like, how they're going to produce the legislation. But what I can say is the fight for the lineage reparations in California was probably, that was a crazy fight because it was 5-4. That some people didn't want it to be solely for the lineage.
I know that, and I have reservations about it just because I always say this on the show, and I still don't know if people know what I mean. But to me, the idea that Black Americans or Negroes, whatever y'all want to be called, are going to be left out because of paperwork and I know everyone says no, we'll have genealogists, but I'm thinking of unhoused people. I'm thinking of descendants of people who escaped the system of enslavement, people who've changed names for whatever reasons. They're not on that census. I've had people yell at me on Twitter and say everybody's on the census. No, actually they're not. Some people went to maroon communities. People did all kinds of things. So I am concerned about what I call the welfareization of reparations, where as a Black person, you got to, it's like the apartheid system. You got to show your ID, be humiliated, and, all the things they do to folks that are on welfare and SNAP.
Well, what I'll say to that is this. That's why it's important for us to build these agencies and these agencies or Freedmen Affairs agencies around the nation, because if we don't have that, we have no actual checks and balances on actually figuring out who's who and what's what. One of the reasons that that office needs to be created is because, just say if you're a homeless individual, Charles Johnson, you put the name in the system, okay, his social security number is 555-222, whatever. Once you get a social security number, even if he was in a foster care system, if he's 60 years old, we still have his parents' information. The country has all of this stuff. Once you have the parents' information, you can go back to the census of when his parents were born, or even the people who were on his parents' birth certificate.
Maybe
that's a fact. But the fact that
it's I just don't think it's that cut and dried with Black folks in this country. But I understand what you're saying.
But you have to have that multi-layer prong. You can't just say reparations without the development of the office, because, to your point, Who's gonna be required to find the people who need reparations? The people that are going to be required to find people are other Black American activists who are and will be the people that will be working for these Freedmen Affairs agencies.
Who would be empowered through this. I'm a supporter of the agency. To me, it's a monument. I mean, hopefully it would be functional too, but it's a monument towards progress in the reparations space. And that's
shout out to Stephen Bradford. He introduced the legislation.
Yes, indeed. Our senator here from California. But I also feel like there's this, back to what you said about gangbanging piece. J. Alexander's in the chat saying, no NAACP, no NARC, no NCOBRA, lineage-based reparations only. How can one organization or one person with a philosophy say, we're going to lock out all these other people in the conversation because they don't agree with the way I want to do it? I mean, doesn't it make sense that we, do something more similar to California and find common ground or find a way to move forward with everybody at the table?
Well, I don't know how other individuals may feel about other organizations and things like that. But what I can say is this is the part of organizational structure. So when you have very little organizational structure, I mean, people will think that you can't do X, Y, and Z. People will think that you can't work with these different individuals. When we first, I don't want to say announced, but when we first said that we were working with NCOBRA PHL, people tried to look at me like I was crazy. I said, do you not know who I am? Like, do you not know what I stand for? Like, you sound crazy even questioning me. And then, as we said, and over the course of time, people was like, oh, well, he was right. Padrino, that's what they call me, Padrino. They said, well, he was right. I said, yeah, I know I was right. So it doesn't matter in regards to the organizations. It all matters in regards to the organizational structure in which people work with in those areas. And it goes back to the beginning point what I said. A lot of these people that really have no civic engagement, community engagement, they haven't done any of this type of stuff. So if I disagree with somebody in the community on something, I'm not going to say it's F them or we're not working together or whatever. Nah, we can work together, but I'm still going to find like-minded individuals, whether it's this organization or just Black people that aren't.
Naturally, that's what we do, right?
But a lot of these people, that's not what they're on.
No? What are they on?
Ideology, lineage, gangbanging. Like, some people, they don't want to do, I call it the work. They don't want to grab the suitcase or they don't want to put on the boots. They don't want to have to, go and do things that are quote-unquote uncomfortable. Because if you take people who are comfortable with being comfortable, when they have to go to an uncomfortable setting, they're not going to try to change or even better themselves. Like, this could be an uncomfortable setting for me, but I've been doing this so long to the point where this isn't uncomfortable. This is normal.
Everybody's welcome here.
No,
Hopefully it's not uncomfortable.
But just speaking, engagement, and just doing different things like that could be uncomfortable for somebody.
Yeah,
that's a truck driver. No offense to my truck drivers, because I got some truck driver homies that's in reparations, but that's not what they do. And now it's like, we're asking you to do that. And it's like, well, I don't do that.
Okay. Well, we got more to talk about. And it's not too late to get into this conversation. 800-920-1580. We're talking with Khaleef Alexander on a Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age. But there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
We all agree that America has a very serious problem.
Okay, KBLA delegation, we need your help as we launch our 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. We would deeply appreciate you going to our KBLA 1580 website and filling out a short climate justice survey, which will help us better serve our beloved community as we build out this campaign. It'll take you just a few short minutes to complete the online survey, and the information you provide us will be invaluable as we do our part to hold folk accountable and amplify the voices of our people in this climate conversation. When you take the survey, you'll be automatically entered to win seats at our annual Black History Month luncheon, Thursday, February 29th. So, hit our website at KBLA 1580. Help us out by taking the short climate justice campaign survey, and you could be our guest at our annual Black History Month luncheon, Thursday, February 29th. Thank you in advance for your consideration and cooperation. At KBLA Talk 1580, we care about the community, we care about the climate.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station,
and your favorite morning show host.
Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now we're talking with Khaleef Alexander, and you were saying that a piece of your work or a piece of the way you work in the reparations space is intersecting with hip hop.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So when we look at hip hop, we just celebrated 50 years of hip hop. And we highlighted a lot of the rappers, but there's elements in hip hop. And one of the elements that wasn't highlighted well enough to my liking was the element of consciousness. That element is supposed to, it focuses on the poor righteous teachers, because that's really what hip hop rappers, that's really what they were in the beginning. A lot of them come from the 5% God bodies. That's what the elements. That's kind of what it can come from. Even like chilling in your b-boy stance, that comes from Father Allah. And for those who don't know who that is, his name was Clarence 13X, Father Allah from the Supreme Gods and Earths. And I know everybody probably heard the song "Chilling in the Club" in my b-boy stance, or just posting on the wall, just in your b-boy stance. So a lot of these things come from the conscious community. But when we look at hip hop and today, we don't see anything conscious or anything righteous. We see a lot of degeneracy and things that, I might listen to some of the music, and I still listen, and I like the music to a certain extent, but I don't appreciate it as much as I used to, because it can tell negative stories of Black culture and Black America. So one of the things that I like to do is focus on the conscious element of hip hop and trying to figure out a way how to restore that back into the culture. And one of the things that I like to do is speak on, like I said, the things that are going on in hip-hop that may not be the best, and things that we can work on to make it better for it to last. And when we start talking about just owning the music, the record labels, we're not owning the record labels. We're not owning the concerts. We're not owning the media outlets. If you start looking at things like Complex, that's not owned by a Black person. When you start looking at, what's another thing? What's this festival? Rolling Loud. That's not owned by Black people. When you even look at, and this is probably be controversial, but when you just look at weed, right? Just look at cookies. You ever heard of cookies? You heard of cookies, right? The blue is the weed, is the Muslim guy. I can't remember his name, but he's from like one of those countries over there. But cookies is a part of hip hop culture. Like that brand, because it's like a popular weed brand. That's not owned by a Black person.
Right. Well, that's one of my things that I complain about all the time on the show. Stop going to Mad Men. Because when weed was illegal, we were mostly recycling Black dollars. Now that it's legal, those dollars are going out of our community. There's plenty of Black-owned. We can talk about this. Gregory Calloway says Black-owned is a myth. We can talk about that next hour. Right now, though, I want to talk about a little bit about this phenomena of, you said Black American is the best term, not in terms of like the legality of getting reparations, but the separation or the pitting of immigrant communities against Black American communities, or FBA. Some folks, some lines of philosophy feel that it's us or them, like right. In terms of resources. Yeah. And I think there's a difference between saying, okay, we are a distinct group as Black Americans, descendants of enslaved, whatever you want to call it. But there's a difference between that and saying we are not getting reparations because of immigration, or that immigrants are the main problem for Black people in this country, which right. I hear a lot of that on Twitter.
Yeah. Really, what I'll say to that, it depends on. It's like basketball. So like I always say you have different styles in basketball. You have somebody that has a beautiful style. They might pass the ball a lot. They might go to the bucket. They might do jelly layups. Or you might got somebody that shoots the ball a lot, 3-pointer, Steph Curry. You might get somebody like a Joel Embiid. You got different styles, right? People have different styles on how they speak about this based off of their reality and where they're at location-wise, or sometimes just based on what they've experienced in the political sector. So you might have somebody that's been close enough to the monies in some of these different state budgets, and let's just say a state budget or a city budget might be $5, $6, $7 billion, and they looked at the money and they said, wait a minute, the money going here, the money going there. So you might have people like that, or you might have people who they might have seen their neighborhoods change over the course. So I just had an Uber driver this morning, and he was saying that he grew up in Inglewood, and it was at one point 80% black. Then he said he drove by the same high school that he went to, and he drove past the school. He said, wait a minute, why are these people not black no more? So you'll have people who have that reality in their mind, but it just really all depends on the style. People have different styles. Like today, you heard me say nothing about, you know what I'm saying? But everything I talked about was how I talked about it. But somebody else, they might have a different way how they're going to speak on it because of their level of experience, sometimes their age, sometimes their region. So that all matters.
Yeah, I mean, but there's core philosophies in any movement, I think. So what do you see as the way forward?
The way forward.
And let me just throw this in there too, because you said you testified for the California Task Force. You've been involved in getting the Philadelphia City one off the ground. A lot of people in lineage spaces do not want to, and other spaces too, think we got to choose between city, state, the national movement. You know, some folks say HR 40 is time has passed. So what is the way forward in your opinion, Khaleef Alexander?
Well, what I'll say about city and state reparations, even though I don't fully agree with them, and city and states will never be able to pay reparations, they only can pay atonement. So they can never do reparations because reparations comes from the federal government. That's the definition. But
reparations just means repair.
I know, but the way how we look at it, like through just say like Dr. Clark Anderson or even Dr. William Sandy Darity, we just look at it as like the whole government has to do because the whole federal government is the one who did it. The individual cities and states, they didn't do the certain harms. They participated in the harms, but the federal government is the one who sanctioned it. But in regards to the city and state reparations, even though I don't really agree with them, but I understand how movements work and things. When I look at, and this is what you'll probably hear from people and how they'll compare, but they won't contrast. So like I can compare how different immigrant groups or migrant groups, they were able to receive monies at the city and state levels, and then they're matriculated up to the federal level because all politics starts local. Same thing in regards to LGBTQ communities. They receive different types of offices. We have an office of LGBTQ affairs in Philadelphia, and other cities and states, they have offices for LGBTQ, and also they have trans offices for trans people too.
Well, that's the T in LGBTQ.
Yeah, but they'll have like a specific office for them. But the reason why I'm now, that's the compare component, right? This all started local. So when it comes down to reparations, I might not agree that we should have local reparations, but it's going to start local. And as people are advocating, or even as politicians, because politicians are money hungry or they follow waves, they'll see something going on somewhere. They'll be like, wait a minute, let me try to do that so I can look transcendent to people. Because politicians are regular people too. They'll probably see something going on in California, or they'll see something going on elsewhere and be like, I want to do that too. And there's nobody there in their local area that knows anything about reparations, say hypothetically. Is up to the reparationists in those areas to reach out to them and say, hey, look, you can't do reparations without doing it this way, or you got to do reparations with me. And one of the things that we did in Philly, we didn't allow that to happen. We didn't allow a politician to come up with a reparations idea of their own. We hammered in on them for 12 to 24 months, and prior to that, even longer. And as we hammered in on them in regards to just giving them information or basically asking and demanding them to do the city reparations, we knew that there would be more cities and states eventually creating these reparations task force. And here we are in 2024. There's over 20 different municipalities and states that have a local reparations or a state reparations task force developed. So now, as we're still, and just imagine if we had just waited. If we had just waited, none of these task forces they wouldn't have been started. None of these task force, none of this stuff would have happened.
Somebody's in the chat saying you didn't testify in California. I got that off your bio though.
Who said that?
Ronnie Lynn.
I don't know who that is, but yeah, I did testify. I testified in Oakland at the City Hall building. Like,
Someone else is asking when and where is the march?
I don't have the full details on the march.
It's in April.
It's in April
in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.
Right?
I don't know the date. I just support those brothers, so I don't have all of the information.
Yeah, I'll get it for you by the time next hour.
I'm cracking up. Somebody said I did testify something that I went to, and I have the photos and the videos for it. I was the first person, and this is going to be funny. I put this on Twitter. I was the first person to testify in the shiesty mask. People said, why you got the shiesty mask? It was cold in Oakland. I didn't know it was cold out here. It was December.
So, again, the other thing that keeps on coming up is party, right? And your friend, Rashid Littlejohn, says party over politics.
Party
Do you
over,
agree?
Yeah.
Because it seems like the MAGA movement in certain aspects of the reparations movement have some crossover.
That's what they try to say. Sometimes the propaganda, I be trying to stay away from the propaganda because I study the propaganda, so they try to say that. But then also, if you got to take it personally, if you got to just be honest, reparations is the most progressive thing that this country could do.
Yeah,
so when we look at the left, we say, hey,
Absolutely.
look, that's the most progressive thing we could do. But then when we look on the right, as Dr. Greg Carr, he likes to say, oh, this is a nativist movement. So you have those different things, but it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if it's Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, Libertarian. We're coming.
Yeah.
And it's just the language.
I mean, I think that's right. My reparations song is written by Rihanna.
Okay.
B, you better have my money.
That's a good one. I like
it really
that one.
doesn't matter what party. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. Just quickly tell us how to follow you.
So you can find me on Instagram at Lucky. Hold on.
I didn't find you. I was looking for you.
Yeah, my Instagram is Lucky. Let me make sure I got it right for you. I just changed it. It's Lucky_Leafy, LUCKY_LEEFY. And then I don't really get my Twitter because Twitter a dangerous space.
It is. It's not for the weak.
But y'all can find me there. And if you
or for the busy.
If you want to email me. Nah, I don't want no emails. It's all
okay, Lucky_Leafy. Khaleef Alexander, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And the phone lines are open next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Biden administration has given Texas a deadline to allow federal agents back into a riverfront park along the border with Mexico, which is currently surrounded by fencing and razor wire. But it's unclear what will happen if the governor doesn't comply by the end of the day. Governor Greg Abbott has already put out a statement saying the state has the right to self-defense, and he has the backing